Good evening, welcome to the Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's Big Stories. Senator Bato de la Rosa now admits former President Duterte's Senate testimony is incriminating and could be used against him since he was speaking under oath.
The PNP says it will begin investigating Duterte's admissions about the Davao death squad just as word comes that the Senate transcript of the hearing has been submitted to the International Criminal Court.
And in the weather, Super Typhoon Leon moves closer to northern Luzon with the wind signal warnings now as high as number 4 and the threat of storm surges raised over Cagayan and Batanes.
It's been 2 days since he appeared in Senate, and still the implications of Rodrigo Duterte's testimony remain unclear.
Will his admission that there is a death squad stand up in court? Even his staunchest ally, Senator Bato de la Rosa, now admits what he said was pretty incriminating.
And so does former Senator Sonny Trillanes, who says the transcript of that hearing has now been transmitted to the International Criminal Court. Man Los Baños has the big story tonight.
At this point, Senator Bato de la Rosa says he's no longer worried about the International Criminal Court's investigation into the Duterte drug war.
Wala na yung uri-uri na yan. Wala na yung uri-uri na yan. Sige, kung andyan kayo, go ahead. Go ahead. Wala nang uri-uri yan. Ano? Sige. Pag mag-uri-uri ka, ikaw lang ang talo. Basta the fact remains that they don't have jurisdiction over the Philippines right now.
As far as he's concerned, the ICC has no jurisdiction over our country. Just like his former boss, Senator De La Rosa had no regrets about his participation in the drug war on drugs, even in the face of testimonies of mass extrajudicial killings and an alleged reward system among law enforcers. What if he gets invited again to another hearing of the Senate Blue Ribbon Subcommittee? De La Rosa is more than willing to participate, standing by his belief there is no conflict of interest here.
Sabi nila, walang delikadisa. Mas mawawalan ako ng delikadisa kung hahayaan ko yung kasinungalingan ang mangingibabaw sa mga pangyayaring ito. Kailangang lumabas ang katotohanan.
Meantime, De La Rosa's nemesis, former Senator Antonio Sonny Trillanes, says the transcript of the Senate hearing on the drug war was today transmitted to the ICC. He also said the pertinent Quadcom transcripts were also transmitted early on and all were duly received. This would have included Duterte's admission that there is a Davao death squad and that he ordered law enforcers to encourage drug suspects to fight back so police can shoot them down. These remarks, according to Trillanes, will be useful once the case is already on trial. As usual, De La Rosa is brushing off Trillanes, including the part where Duterte admitted to the death squad.
President Duterte has been president for 6 years. You see what you get. Kung sino siya. So it's up for you to decipher kung siya nagbibiro o totoo yung sinasabi niya. Basta lahat ng sinasabi niya, puro mga extremes, puro superlatives, puro mga hyperbole, lahat yan, puro yan panakot sa kriminal. Then file cases in court against him.
But De La Rosa does now admit that Duterte may have said things that could be used against him in a legal forum.
Pwede yan, pwedeng magamit yan against him. Lalo na, under oath siya, di ba? Nagsalita siya doon. So, depende na sa kanya, how is he going to defend himself?
For now, the Blue Ribbon Subcommittee has no plans yet of inviting the ex-president back to its inquiry. According to presiding subcommittee chairman Coco Pimentel, they would like to hear next from those who were not at Monday's hearing, like former PCSO General Manager Regina Garma and former NAPOLCOM Commissioner Edelberto Leonardo. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
If the Senate is not keen on inviting Duterte to further hearings, the PNP for one is. PNP Chief General Romel Marbil has ordered a quote-unquote extraction of data on unsolved cases reportedly related to the death squad, including those that were mentioned during the hearings. The PNP is now also investigating whether any police officers were involved in this alleged death squad.
May mga sinasabi siya ng una, kiniklaim niya na may death squad, then later on binawi rin po niya, but this will not stop the PNP from pursuing and investigating this case po. And he mentioned some names at tinutuko po niya yung ibang mga pulis po, then that will be used as lead and basis of the PNP to conduct further investigation po.
One of the more shocking things Duterte said at the hearing was that he ordered police to encourage suspects to fight back, to draw their guns so the police can kill them. The PNP denounced this.
It's not just a violation ng rules of engagement. This is a clear violation po ng ating constitution. Now we have to accord due process. Anyone should not be deprived of life, liberty without due process po.
The spotlight at the hearing was also on Senator Coco Pimentel, chair of the Blue Ribbon Subcommittee and also the minority leader, and who now joins us on the big story. Good evening, Senator. Good to see you.
Hi, good evening, Gretchen, Shawn, and Regina, and to all of our viewers. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.
Good evening, Senator. Thanks for being with us. First, I want to give you a chance to address some of the criticism that's come up about your handling of the hearing. People are saying that you lost control. Carlos Conde of Human Rights Watch told us that he felt that Duterte had hijacked the hearing, and also former Senator Ping Lacson tweeted that the upper chamber was invaded by Duterte. What do you think?
And yet they are happy that they have lots of material. Diba? So actually, I will just follow the advice of Dr. Willie Ong. Sabi niya, masyado niyang sineryoso yung mga bashing sa kanya, kaya siya nagka-cancer. So wag na lang natin seryosohin yan. Kasi nga, as chairman, my mission was to be in the middle. Just to bring out the evidence and to receive the evidence and to hear the witnesses. Wala naman akong plano makipagdebate kung tama o mali ang opinion ng witness. So, mabuti na yan. Let's just put everything on record. And then these people who are criticizing me are at the same time very happy that they have lots of material available. Who made that possible? Sagutin nga nila. Anyway, I'll go back to the advice of Doc Willie Ong. Wag nang patulan ang mga bashers, ang mga negative comments. Gawin lang natin yung trabaho natin ng tama.
Curious lang ako, Senator Coco, before the hearing, medyo short notice rin, you guys were convened kind of suddenly. You just had a few days to prepare. Going into the hearing, did you have a strategy? Parang, ito yung gagawin ko, nasunod ba yun? Or parang, what was going through your mind? Ano yung initial plan mo going into Monday's hearing?
Yes, just to be a neutral chairman nga and then to receive the evidence. But then, ito yung plano ko talaga. Because sabi ko nga, this is a blue ribbon hearing. So dapat, this is about, the allegation is, someone in government made some questionable actions or decisions. Ayun tawag nga na malfeasance, misfeasance, and nonfeasance. Kaya ang aking plano sana, uunahin namin pakinggan yung mga victim families. Umangal yung mga kasama ko. Kasi daw we have a former president in our midst. Pakinggan daw muna yung opening statement. So ang compromise na lang namin, sige okay, dahil sa former president na ang witness namin right before us, sabi ko sige okay, pakinggan yung opening statement niya, but ang compromise namin, after him, we will hear the victim families. Yun naman ang nangyari. Yun naman ang natupad. So yun lang yung strategy ko na hindi natupad kasi nga ang gusto ko sana victim families and then former President Duterte. Nagkabaliktad. Former President Duterte and then victim families.
Senator, don't you think the other senators could have pressed more on the statements that the former president was making, particularly on, for example, the Davao Death Squad, on payments coursed through mooking for one, and to focus on what the committee was investigating on, because it turned the other way around, that the resource person was the one asking questions to the senators. And you don't see that all the time. That's why meron po nagsasabi na napunta yung control sa former president and he was acting like he was still boss in this hearing.
Well, okay lang yun. I mean, it will be more natural yung kanyang testimony and it's all recorded. And actually, for example, tinanong niya si Bato. Si Bato naman sumagot. So who are we? Who are we to stop Senator Bato from answering? Pero yung tinanong ni President Duterte yung si Colonel Grijaldo, hindi ko naman pinasagot na si Colonel Grijaldo. Sinabi ko tapos na po yun, sir. Nasagot na po ni Colonel Grijaldo yun. So ganoon naman. So we were still in control of the hearing, except that we really have a unique personality appearing before us. And ang attitude ko naman ganito Okay, this is a person who has served as president. So, siya rin yung nag-implement ng war on drugs. So therefore, siguro marami rin tayong pwedeng matutunan, makuha o maririnig galing sa taong ito na who held the highest post in the land. So that was my attitude. So I let him speak, no? So and then we request actually yung it's just the cursing na medyo na medyo hindi natin na control, although Senator Risa pointed this out and I requested him to try to minimize or eliminate it. Talagang hindi kaya. I mean, it's really his way of speaking. So ito siguro para malaman din pala ninyo, because I'm sure marami tayong mga viewers doon na akala nila na kasi nakita nila sa House hearing yung gaano kabilis yung mag-contempt, di ba? The subcommittee has no power to cite anybody in contempt, ha? So and we would not have done it anyway. But anyway, kung may power to cite wala kami power to cite in contempt. That's in our rules. So the power of the subcommittee is actually to, if there is an unruly person right before you and then you can no longer hold the hearing because of this unruly person, siguro the power of the subcommittee is to send out that person who is now disrupting the proceedings. Yung mga curse words, and then if we send him away, then wala na tayong testigo, di ba? So, tama rin naman si President Duterte, sabi niya, you invited me here. Actually, he was also invited. So, pakinggan natin yung taong inimbita natin.
Yep. Senator, speaking of citing in contempt, we had Senator Bato de la Rosa here on the show last night. I'm just going to play a short soundbite for you to listen to and react. If I could just roll that soundbite of Senator Bato.
As I have said, yung Davao Death Squad creation ng media yan doon sa Davao. May namamatay. Pero yung Death Squad na sabi mo, inorganize talaga yan at organized. I don't think so.
But the former President Duterte also pointed to you during the hearing. Sabi niya at one point, ikaw, Death Squad ka din.
Joke. Sabi niya, joke.
Senator, he was under oath when he said that. Kasi
So what? Bakit? Kung under oath siya, din na i-contempt nila.
Okay, so his last line was, kung under oath siya, di in contempt nila, meaning you the Senate, and
Alam nyo, I am the chairman of the subcommittee. Siyempre, mas pinag-aralan ko na yung rules namin. So, Senator
Right.
Bato is just operating under general rules. But Section 20 of our rules, yun yung, actually, that what Section 20 was quoted in the letter of the Blue Ribbon chairman to me. Ang sabi ng Section 20, you just ask your researchers to look at Section 20 of our Senate rules. And very, very clear po doon. At it's the opening paragraph of the
Yeah.
of the letter of Senator Pia Cayetano to me for forming the subcommittee.
Yeah.
It's
Senator-
very, very clear doon, except the power to cite in contempt under Section 18 of our rules.
Right. So, Senator, I understand that part that you can't cite him in contempt, but the question is, what do we make of that when they say it's a joke? His testimony is a joke, given he was under oath. And we were trying to find out, everyone was trying to find out, is there a Davao Death Squad? That is the heart,
Will we-
the question at
ang
the heart
tanong,
of it, right?
When we write the committee report, will we treat it as a joke? Yun ang tanong. Yun ang tanong. But just wait for the committee report. It's too early. I think it's also unfair that after just one hearing, we will already decide. And we will already make up our minds. It's too early. I mean, we should have one or two more hearings, and then we can now form our opinion. That's why I appreciated your earlier news report that the PNP is moving, because I really intend to invite the PNP chief in the next hearing kasi tatanungin ko nga siya. Now that you are the chief, what are you doing? Oh, you were, and then tatanungin din natin siya. What was your rank and position during the Duterte administration? Oh, and then siyempre mas lower level pa siya noon, di ba? And then tatanungin natin siya. Oh, when you were at that rank and position, did you hear this talk about this reward system?
Senator,
To be clear, this is PNP Chief General Romel Marbil. You
Correct.
want-
The current chief now, yes,
Okay,
Marbil.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I really intend to invite him sa next meeting.
Okay,
But
thank you.
I saw your news report na kumikilos na rin pala sila. So that's very good.
Okay.
okay. Senator Coco, one of the things that wasn't answered, this is just an addition to what Regina was saying earlier. Yun nga, parang the former president seemed to have several definitions as to what the death squad was, di ba? At alam na natin yan, no? At some point, tinuro niya yung dating PNP chief. At some point, yung gangsters daw. And you have also said that he will not be invited because there is no need for him to be at the succeeding hearings. I guess first question, Senator, may idea na ba tayo kung kailan yung next hearing? And second, how do we plan to answer these questions without the attendance of the former president? And to confirm what he said, kung alin ba talaga dun yung tama or all or none?
Alam mo, it's illogical to get all of our information from one person. We have to do some investigating ourselves, hindi ba? Kasi, sir, ano ba, A, B, or C? Ang gagawin niya lang niya, dadagdagan niya D, E, or F just to confuse everybody. It's illogical to just keep on returning to one person and then and number one, force him to admit something, and then he is so wise that he will not admit it, therefore nothing will happen. So we have to do the investigation ourselves. That's why I will Senate yan. The Senate has to do its own thing, but of course we have the law enforcement agencies. The past 10 years, anong ginawa ninyo? The past 8 years or 10 years, Then sa next hearing, on the question on the next hearing, I was disappointed during the first hearing that Garma did not show up and Leonardo, but they had reasonable or legitimate excuses. So we are reasonable people, so we understand and we will allow it. But the next hearing must be scheduled in such a time or a period that Garma and Leonardo will be present before us.
Okay, apart from the two policemen that you were talking about, are you also planning to look into the other definitions of a Davao Death Squad espoused by the President? Kung yung mga mayayaman daw sa Davao ang nagpopondo nito at yung mga gangsters. I mean, how do you investigate that? How do you find resource persons with that?
That's a good question for investigators. How do you investigate that? Do you even investigate that? Or swertihan that there is a whistleblower or some witness will volunteer some information. Sometimes swertihan din yan. So that's a very good question. But then relax lang muna tayo. Basta yung investigators natin ready and then we pursue the topics. But of course you cannot force the facts to come out if the statement is not true. Di ba? What if it is not true? How can all of a sudden then we can produce the witnesses? So we will just pursue and then investigate. We will rely on the very experienced investigators. Tignan natin yung lead. Ang tawag yata dyan, lead eh. If there are leads that we can follow.
Yeah.
But if there is no lead that we can follow, huwag natin pilitin because ayaw naman natin din na we are not, ano lang tayo rito, we are just an impartial chairman of an investigation and we want to receive as many testimony and evidence which are credible evidence. We want as much credible evidence that we can get.
Yeah. Senator Coco, I know you have to leave by 8:30, but just one last question very quickly. Former Senator Sonny Trillanes says the transcript of the Senate hearing has been transmitted to the ICC. The transcripts of the Quadcom hearings were previously transmitted already and duly received. I wonder if you know anything about this.
I need to ask the Blue Ribbon staff, okay? Remember, I am not the chairman of the Blue Ribbon. I am just a chairman of a subcommittee. So I need to ask the staff kung if someone has formally asked for for certified true copies of transcript and other records.
Senator, I know you are a minority leader, but taking a look at the Senate hearing, it seems though that there were not enough voices to challenge the allies and also the former president. I mean, if taking a look at the whole power dynamic inside the room, do you think the senators could have done better and could do better in the hearings to come?
You ask them because I gave all of them 10 minutes each. So how they use the time given to them, they should be you asked to explain how they use the time given to them. So at saka, of course, the agenda is not really to pin down the former president, diba? So kanya-kanya, the agenda is to make him appear before us and hear his testimony. So one senator might want to ask some very sharp or very difficult to answer questions. One senator would probably want to praise the former president. So I gave them equal time. You ask them why they used their time that way, the way that they used it. So, sagutin na po nila yon sa kanilang mga audience o sa kanilang mga constituents.
Okay. Well, thank you for allowing us to press you tonight and for making time for us. We're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much for your time. Senator Coco Pimentel, lead of the Senate probe into the Duterte drug war.
Up next, we bring you a live update from Santa Ana, Cagayan, which is under threat of a storm surge due to Super Typhoon Leon. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching a big story here on One News.
Unfortunately, what we have feared has come to pass. Tropical Cyclone Leon has now turned into a super typhoon, and it is currently skirting northern Luzon. The massive Eye of Leon, international name Kongray, is packing winds of up to 185 kmh with gustiness of up to 230 kmh. It is far from land for now, but its circulation is already affecting the Luzon mainland. The Eye of Leon is moving towards the Batanes Islands, which has been placed under wind signal warning number 4. Signal number 3 is up over the eastern portion of the Babuyan Islands and the northeastern portion of mainland Cagayan. The rest of the Babuyan Islands, the rest of mainland Cagayan, the northern portion of Isabela, Apayao, Kalinga, the northern and eastern portions of Abra, the eastern portion of Mountain Province, and Ilocos Norte are all under signal number 2. The rest of Isabela, Quirino, Nueva Vizcaya, the rest of Mountain Province, Ifugao, Benguet, the rest of Abra, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Pangasinan, Nueva Ecija, Aurora, and the northeastern portion of Tarlac are all under signal number 1. Super Typhoon Leon is forecast to move towards Taiwan in the coming days.
One province that's affected by Super Typhoon Leon's inner circulation is Cagayan. In every cyclone, places that are closest to the eye bear the brunt of the devastating wind and rain from the storm. News 5's Brian Basa is over at Santa Ana, Cagayan to give us an update from the ground. Magandang gabi sa'yo, Brian. Unang-una, kamusta ang mga kababayan nating Cagayanon at gaano kalakas ang ulan dyan?
Gretchen, alam nyo, lalong gumagabi, ladies. Good evening to you. Lalong gumagabi, pero lalong lumalakas ang ihip ng hangin. You see behind me, I don't know if you see it, it's nighttime, you know. The rain has let up behind me a bit, but the wind continues to howl, and it's actually trying to push me off the ladder I'm standing on. You know, earlier today made no difference kasi tonight is pitch black, so it's kind of dangerous to go out. Pero kahit kanina na maliwanag, ramdam pa rin at kita ang lakas ng Super Typhoon Leon. You see it in the violently swaying trees. You see it in the waves in the sea, the crashing waves. You see it in the swelling rivers. Ramdam din yan sa ating mga kababayan, yung mga residente ritong kinakabahan. No, that's despite years of weathering different kinds of storms. Kinakabahan sila kung ano ang kahihinatnan ng bayang ito. No, and essentially that is Santa Ana town for you. At this hour, at this time, amid the impact of Super Typhoon Leon as it continues to barrel through the north. As you said, signal number 3 is up in the area, so authorities and residents alike are not letting their guard down. Ladies.
Is it more of a wind or a rain situation over there? Because as we know, typhoon signal numbers are measured by wind speeds, not necessarily by how much rain ang dala ng bagyo. In terms of wind, we can see, don't worry, even if it's nighttime, we can see how strong the leaves are moving behind you, Brian. But how is the rain situation?
Okay. As of now, medyo umaambon naman na, Shawn, if I heard it correctly, Shawn. So medyo umaambon na lang ngayon, pero minsan kasi pabago-bago ang dami ng ulan. Parang yung hangin, minsan medyo pabuga-buga, tas biglang magkakaroon ng isang malaking push, like a violent push of some sort. So as of now, medyo nag-let up ng konti ang ulan. That's why thankfully we got to set up our live report nicely here in Santa Ana. But let's see, because again, the storm is inching closer to Bataan. So we're hopefully, and the residents here are expecting that the rains won't be as heavy as it was earlier. Back to you.
Batanes siguro yung ano, yung...
I think you meant Batanes. Pero
Batanes. Sorry.
I don't blame you.
Sorry,
I can
yes.
hear.
minsan
I
kasi.
can now hear how strong the wind is. I think your mic is picking up some of the gusts. The strong pushes, no, just for everyone's knowledge, the strong pushes, that's what we call the gustiness. So that's now going up to 230 kilometers per hour.
Hi, this is Reg. I was just wondering, kamusta yung evacuation protocol over there? We're not expecting this super typhoon to make landfall, and it's expected to make landfall in Taiwan, actually. But still, what are the preparations like over there?
Hi, Reg. Okay, so as early as yesterday, so bago pa dumating yung, bago pa magpaulan at maghampas ng hangin ng Super Typhoon Leon, the authorities already worked double time in encouraging residents here in Santa Ana to evacuate. Because they are well aware of what's going to happen once the storm arrives. So ang ginawa nila as of right now, a forced evacuation ang status in all 8 coastal barangays. These are the communities living malapit sa dagat. So lahat yan, dapat ang expectation, lahat wala nang matitira dyan, dapat nasa evacuation center na. Meanwhile, the other barangays, there are 8 barangays na nakasituate naman sa land. Preemptive ang term nila ha, although again, we cannot really say preemptive if we are to be strict about the term because the storm has already arrived. Pero the point is parang more of encouraging, voluntary ang evacuation dun sa 8 barangays na nakasituate dito sa land or which are farther from the coast. Tapos, per barangay ang evacuation. So each barangay has its own center or temporary shelter where residents can move. And then kapag nagkapunuan doon, when they get filled up, they can occupy the municipal evacuation center next, which is located at the heart of Santa Ana. And then we asked, of course, the MDRMO, what if hindi pa rin sapat ang municipal evacuation centers? They can use schools and other government facilities as evacuation centers. Now, I know this has been a question since yesterday, no, yung naval base, because there is an EDCA site here in Santa Ana, the Camilo Osias Naval Base, which is located sa dulo ng Santa Ana. Now, I know there's an order by President Marcos to use EDCA sites as evacuation centers during times of calamities, but the MDRRMO finds this particular naval base risky for evacuees to stay in. Why? Kasi malapit daw sa dagat, and given that warning by Pagasa, the storm surge warning, medyo risky raw na papunta yung mga evacuees doon, tapos ang tubig tumataas. So, yun ang gagamitin nilang last resort, kumbaga. Back to you.
Brian, it's good news and good to see that you're okay, that everybody seems very much prepared, and that there are no rains behind you. That's a good sign, and we hope everybody survives tonight. Thank you so much for that report.
Stay
that was
safe, Bri.
News 5's Brian Basa reporting from Santa Ana, Cagayan.
Another quick break, but right after that, is nuclear power the answer to the Philippines' energy crisis? We'll be speaking to DOE Director Patrick Aquino about the risks and opportunities of nuclear when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. The Philippines and South Korea have signed an agreement to conduct a feasibility study to explore the revival of the Bataan nuclear power plant. The BNPP in Morong, Bataan was actually Southeast Asia's first nuclear power plant, finished in 1986. It was commissioned by the late President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., but it was never operated, not even fired up. Nearly 40 years later, support is growing for nuclear energy around the world amid the growing threat of climate change and continually rising energy costs. The Marcos Jr. administration has set energy security as a high priority, and nuclear energy is expected to be part of a mix alongside renewables that will help wean the country off coal.
But the big question is, does the Philippines have what it takes to manage the risks of a nuclear power plant? Let's dive into that a bit. We are joined tonight by Patrick Aquino. He is the Director of the Energy Utilization Management Bureau over at the Department of Energy. Director Patrick, good evening and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good evening, madams, and thank you for having me tonight.
Okay. It's good that we have you tonight because the weather is really bad up north, and every time there are these adverse and extreme weather events, we always rethink, how smart is it really if we do go and invest in nuclear? Is it really suited for a country that's at the front lines of all these climate risks?
Well, the primary goal of having it in the energy mix that we've included it in the Philippine Energy Plan 2050 is that it's part of our portfolio. It is a low carbon option for us. You do know that with the threats of climate change, the key pillar is really to increase the share of renewable energy. But there's still going to be a portion of our energy requirements that we need to transition towards. And what the Department of Energy is saying and what we're communicating to the public is that it's time to revisit nuclear energy in terms of emission. It's a zero emission proposition. And yes, when it comes to concerns about risks, you do know that Japan, for example, also similarly situated with the Philippines, have operating nuclear power plants, and they're able to do it in a safe, secure manner. I know some people still recall what happened in Fukushima in 2011, but there have been technological and interventions that have with having that conversation.
We lost you for a bit there, Director. I assume you were talking about the new technology around small modular reactors that make it safer for nuclear power plants to run. But let me come back to the news peg, which is the Philippines and Korea signing an agreement to launch a feasibility study into reviving Bataan nuclear power plant. Two questions there for you. Why Korea? What makes Korea the right partner for a feasibility study? And how long do we anticipate this to go on for? Director.
The results of the study 2025, it will run through July 2025. So we'll be receiving the results in July 2025 next year. Why Korea? Korea offered us at no cost. It's at no cost to us. There's also no commitment.
Seems we have a very, very choppy signal
For the
with our guest
Philippines.
tonight. But it's been a long conversation about the nuclear energy, right? We've been hearing about it, the Bataan nuclear power plant not being used since 1986. Essentially, takot ang Pilipino
So
when we hear
two
nuclear
issues
power.
around nuclear power: high upfront costs and safety. So high upfront costs is it's going to take billions of dollars, not pesos, just to revive Bataan. We saw the pictures, right? The technology is. It's like stepping back into a time machine. The technology
literally a
is from
Stanley
the
Kubrick movie.
1980s. Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
I
You
have
step into
actually
the
been
control
inside.
room,
Yeah.
and it looks like, oh wow, I've stepped back in time.
They have the rotary phones, things that you see in an old movie.
So imagine having to fire that up and to upgrade all of that to revive Bataan, right? That's going to take billions of dollars. Do we now have Director Patrick Aquino
Yes.
again?
Okay, there he is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
with respect, that's right. We've commissioned a survey on how the public perceives nuclear. And what we can tell you, Madam, is that, yeah, on top of this, even from 2019, when we had that perception survey and awareness, the real concern is on the upfront costs. And what we'd like to highlight, let's say, on this feasibility study that's being done by KHNP is that they'll also offer us possible financing options. Because it's very clear that we would require a large amount of money to bring this in. And what's different now from the previous conversation is that we are also joined by our private sector partners. So the private sector is also actively looking at government, looking at what we're seeing, and we're just paving the way essentially for them that the regulations, the safety, and then of course the messaging to the public is there. So our goal, that leads me to actually why I wanted to jump into it. That's why we're holding this Philippine International Supply Chain Forum next month from November 13, 14, and 15. We're actually bringing in countries that have been in the nuclear space for quite some time, like the United States, Canada, France, South Korea, and Japan, so that our people, whether it's the academe, the private sector, will have an opportunity to interact and hear about the latest trends. It's also giving emphasis on making sure that our private sector partners have access to the information, the same information that us in government will have. And we're inviting everyone. If you're not able to join us physically, we will be streaming some of the panels and portions of it. Again, it's going to be on November 13, 14, and 15 in Soler North. It's the Philippine International Nuclear Supply Chain Forum. We're very much open to have you, so you get to see all of these latest developments, and be open about why nuclear might be part of a sustainable option for our country.
Director, it seems that we are still in the introductory phase of embracing nuclear energy, but the president has made it a priority to reduce dependence on fossil fuel. Could you give us the exact breakdown now of how much energy we get from fossil fuels, from renewable energy, just for us to understand what percentage of the pie does each take?
So in terms of the percentage of the pie right now, the biggest portion is still on conventional sources like coal. Renewable energy, in terms of the generation mix, it's already up to 30%. But our goal is by the end of the decade, by 2030, it's higher than 35%. The longer term goal is to make renewable energy at least 50% of our generation mix or higher. So that leaves you a balance of the remaining 50 or 49% for 2050 and beyond. And that's where we're looking at the possible role of nuclear. In fact, in the plan through 2023 to 2050, nuclear will just take a share of anywhere from 7 to at most 10%. So it's really going to still be a balanced mix that we have. So to repeat right now, the biggest share still in terms of power generation mix is still coal. It's roughly almost still half. Renewable energy is now around 30%. That's why we're increasing it to at least 35% again before the decade is over, and at least 50% by 2050, or more than 50% by 2050 and beyond.
Pag renewable, ibig sabihin kasama dyan yung solar, yung wind, offshore wind, tama ba? And geothermal?
Tama. For renewable, we're referring to biomass, solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, ocean. So they call it the big show actually if you do the acronym. So it includes everything that I've just mentioned.
Okay, Director, the last time we spoke to the DOE, it was summer, it was really hot, and we were always going on red alert. We understand what you're trying to do long term, but for this coming summer, now we're not thinking about it because it's kind of windy, it's kind of cool outside, so it's at the back of our mind, but it's just a few months away. What is the energy space looking at in terms of supply for the upcoming summer months?
You know, there's a lot of developments to the credit of the current administration, of course, the push. There are improvements. We do have a better positioned grid transmission requirements. There are projects on grid strengthening that came in, whether here in Luzon, Hermosa, and San Jose. 500 kV was commissioned earlier, a couple of months back. Phases 1 and 2 of Cebu Negros for the Visayas and Cebu Bohol transmission was also commissioned. And we also now have the Mindanao Visayas interconnection project, allowing for the sharing of power between Mindanao and Visayas to up to 450 megawatts. So in terms of what we're seeing, from now until the end of the year, we're not expecting any grid alerts. Outside of the weather disturbances, of course, you are aware that if there's like a typhoon that affects some of the transmission assets, as well as the distribution utilities and our electric cooperatives. But from the forecast that we've been seeing, we're in pretty good shape for 2025 so far.
That's good to hear. So we agree that there are two big issues with nuclear, right? So high upfront costs and safety. The first part you addressed, but what about the safety bit? So Bataan Nuclear Power Plant sits on the coast above sea level, so that's good, but it's also quite near several volcanoes. Chief of them, Mount Pinatubo, which is, if I recall correctly, only about 57 kilometers from the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant. That is not something that can be changed. So what are we doing to mitigate those risks?
Okay. What's good for us is that with respect, let's say, just taking the case of Pinatubo. Pinatubo erupted when the BNPP is already constructed. And structurally, at least from the studies that were done in 2007 and then again in 2016, it had minimal effect into the structural integrity of the Bataan nuclear power plant itself. Now we take on the concern with respect to what happened in Fukushima, wherein the water seeped into the backup generator. That's why it was not unable to safely cool down the systems, leading to the meltdown. Um, Fortunately for us, the location elevation from sea level of BNPP is higher than in Fukushima. So even at the worst case scenario of a movement in the Manila Trench and a possible tsunami, it will not reach the foot of the facility of BNPP. Now, the other thing that you mentioned that we'd like to disabuse that concern of our public is that there's a volcano that's dormant that's nearby. We've been communicating to the public, and our scientists or geologists will back this up. When it was constructed, the risk was assessed. And in terms of the age, Mount Natib is the one that you're referring
That's
to
right,
that's
yeah.
closest to BNPP. The last eruption, if you look at the geological history, that there's even a more recent volcano that erupted nearer to Metro Manila than, and it's, we're not even concerned about it, older or younger than Mount Natib. But I won't go into the technicalities of it. But our goal really is to communicate to the public that for every concern that we have on nuclear, there are scientific and technological interventions that can be done so that it can be safely operated.
But Director, why push for Bataan? Why not just build these newer technology like the modular reactors, for example? Smaller, we can spread it out. We are an archipelago. I believe there was also a study already done earlier, more than a decade ago, and it said it would take billions of dollars just to revive that plant. Wouldn't that money just be more wisely spent on building another facility instead of trying to revive, a lot of people are calling it a white elephant?
You know, the question we wanted when the previous administration came in, and even under this administration, our goal is to put final closure to it. And this would be the more or less the final study, because this will go into everything that you are just exactly mentioning to us. It will look at the technical side. It will look at, can you really operate it? Can you really rehabilitate it? And if the answer is yes, how much? If it's so expensive, will it make economic sense for us to do so? Wouldn't it be better for us to just build a new power plant? Those are exactly the topics of that MOU that will be conducted under the one that was signed with KHNP the other month. That's why we are getting it. And the beauty of that particular feasibility study that will start in January and will get the results in July next year is that we have no commitment. If they say, yeah, you can operate it, this is how much it's going to cost, or hey, you might not be able to operate it, build a new one, this is what's going to cost. That option would have some financing considerations already. Because let me just go back, the top of concern, even from 2019 when we had that perception survey, it's not even on the safety, it's on the cost. So front and center, we're really pushing that the results of this upcoming feasibility study will give us that answer as well as a financing option for us, so that
Okay.
the strain on our resources will also be not as immediate as people are concerned about.
Well, of course, we do know there's some nostalgia there with the president having his father. This one was an
Commissioned by
uncompleted
Ferdinand Marcos Sr.,
project
yes.
by his
So
father.
it's essentially an unfinished family business for President Bongbong Marcos.
Well, we should find out once and for all whether or not it can be revived by June or July of next year. And
That's right, ma'am. That's what we will be presenting to the public.
But speaking of options and speaking of cost efficiency, there's a proposal in the House of Representatives to develop the West Philippine Sea as an offshore wind power source. Is that also a good alternative? Will that bring us a good amount of energy from renewables?
Because I think you have to give so much credit to the current administration and the leadership of Secretary Lotilio, because one of the first things that they've done is really come out with a framework for offshore wind. And right now, we have awarded quite a number of service contracts for offshore wind in several corridors of potential here of Luzon, whether it's in northern or in the other side, other seaboard. And yes, we've also even made improvements in our renewable energy service contracting. Recognizing through a legal opinion, we've even amended and updated our service contracting rules to allow for greater foreign direct investments, 100% foreign ownership, for example, for some types of renewable energy service contracts. So we're really bringing in attention to reach our targets of at least 35% renewable energy in our power generation mix by 2030 and at least 50% or more than 50% from 2050 and beyond.
All right. On that note, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Keep an eye out for that report.
And we will call you back as soon as June or July comes around. Patrick Aquino, Director of the Energy Utilization Management Bureau of the Energy Department, thank you so much for your time. And before we say goodbye, here is our big picture tonight. And this one is all the way over at the other side of the world, where storms are also leaving cities devastated. Here are pictures of devastating scenes in Valencia, Spain. Cars piled up on top of each other like a junkyard. Cars hanging on fences. And railways buried and rendered useless under debris. This is how the city looks like after yesterday's massive floods. The thing is, in just a few hours, a year's worth of rain fell on the city, dumping a total of 500 millimeters of water. Imagine that. 500 millimeters of water, that's actually more than what the Bicol region got from Typhoon Christine, or at least the outer cloud bands of Typhoon Christine.
Well, good news is that we don't see any rainfall over in Santa Ana. We hope it stays that way. And
a year's worth of rain. I was just trying to look it up. Wow, a year's worth of rain fell in a few hours. That is very scary.
And it's
again,
obviously not
coming back
kasi
to our
2 months.
2 months worth of rain fell in one day.
Yeah.
That's
So-
right. We were measuring it hour by hour, right?
And it was just above 460 millimeters total, or 483, I believe. So that's a 2-month allowance for Bicol, which is in the tropics. If you compare it to Valencia, Spain, that's a year's worth of rain at 500 millimeters.
That's why the cars were all piled up like that.
They don't have, I think, the infrastructure.
Climate change. This is what they say about extreme weather disturbances becoming more frequent, right? And circling back to our talk with DOE Director Patrick Aquino about the urgent need to ensure energy security, because, I mean, this is the new normal now. We're not going to see fewer rains. We're not going to see less rainfall
And
from
secure
here on.
enough energy supply that is not damaging to the environment, because that's
That's going to
one
exacerbate
thing.
the problem.
Exactly.
There's also talk
It's a hard
online about,
decision.
trying to dissect all of these pronouncements by weather forecasters, yung separating wind strength from rainfall. And now it feels like we're getting a science lesson every day. And yun nga, kung bakit mahalaga that you understand kahit malayo pa yung bagyo, what it could bring. That even if it's, just the wind strength is low, quality signal number 1, it could still
bring
bring
a lot
you
of rainfall.
a lot of rainfall. Like what happened over with Tropical Storm Christine.
I'm pretty sure our meteorologists right now all over the world are thinking of ways to redefine, because we hear signal number 4, we understand malakas yun, pero hangin lang yun eh. It doesn't guarantee yung maraming ulan or
It doesn't
mahina.
also tell you anything about storm surges if you're living by
Exactly.
the coast.
But
right?
what I do understand is 1 year's worth of rain pouring down on a single day, or 2 months
That's-
worth of rain
that's
pouring down on a
abnormal.
single day. So that's very much
That's
easy
incredible.
to understand.
That's devastating.
So
Yeah.
before we say goodbye and end the show, again, prayers to everybody up there in northern Luzon. Our prayers are with you tonight. And that's it for us here at The Big Story.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.